On a freezing October night in Aurora, Colorado, the wind howled like a warning. Through empty streets, Matthew Clark, a weary single father, working the night shift at a small gas station, was about to make a choice that would shatter his life and change it forever. A desperate mother with a sleeping child begged for gas, but he knew the cameras were watching. One act of kindness, just $15, would cost him everything. Yet the very next morning, a black Rolls Royce, the night over Aurora, Colorado, dropped like a heavy curtain. Icy mountain winds raced across the deserted streets, rattling every window of the small neighborhood. A young father named Matthew Clark stood alone in the dimly lit gas station where he worked the night shift, completely unaware that before sunrise, his entire life would twist in a direction he never could have imagined. One single choice he made that night would send shockwaves through his world. It was a choice that looked small to everyone else, but it carried enough power to break everything he relied on, and also bring something so unexpected that destiny itself seemed to pause and watch. Matthew had always believed that hard work would save him. He arrived early, he stayed late, and he carried the weight of responsibility like a second skin. At only 28, with a tired back and an equally tired heart, he still held on to a sliver of hope. All because of his 6-year-old daughter, Ella. She was the light of his life, the very reason he kept going every single day. He worked through the lonely nights. He gave up weekends. He skipped meals if money was tight. He lived his life quietly and with patience, because he believed that one day, life would finally reward him for his effort. But life rarely moves in straight lines, and on this freezing October night, that truth arrived with the quiet creak of an old Honda pulling into the deserted parking lot. The car shuddered, looking like it could collapse at any moment. Something about it just made Matthew stop stocking the shelves and turn his head. A woman stepped out, clutching her purse with trembling hands. Her clothes, which might have been stylish once, now looked worn down by struggle. Her eyes showed an exhaustion deeper than just a lack of sleep. And in the back seat, under a thin blanket, a small child slept, curled up tight against the unforgiving cold. Matthew approached her with the gentle, reassuring tone he offered everyone. "Good evening, how can I help you?" She hesitated, biting her lip as if the words themselves carried shame, before whispering, "I only have $15. I need enough gas to reach Denver, but I guess this is all I have." Matthew felt something tighten in his chest. $15 would barely get her halfway, and the temperature outside was dropping fast, well into the dangerously cold territory. He glanced at the sleeping child in the back, then back at the woman who stood shivering, not from the cold, but from sheer fear. He knew the rules, he knew the new management. He knew the cameras were watching, and he definitely knew that Darren Cole, the new manager, watched every single move with the hunger of a predator searching for a mistake. The rule was brutally clear: no helping, no exceptions, no kindness. But Matthew was a father first, and an employee second. His mind flashed to the days when he himself had counted out coins, praying they would be enough to feed Ella. He remembered the nights when Rebecca, his wife, had disappeared for hours, leaving him unsure if she would ever return. He remembered the crushing weight of caring for a child completely alone, hoping he had enough strength for both of them. So, without a second thought, he opened his wallet and pulled out the only $20 bill he had left. It was the money he had carefully saved to buy fever medicine for Ella, just in case her cough returned. He held it out to the woman and said softly, "I'll cover the rest. You can go home safely now." Tears instantly filled the stranger's eyes as she whispered, "Thank you." As if the words themselves might break apart, Matthew simply nodded and filled her tank himself, letting the warmth of doing something right settle over him, even as the cold bit into the air. He didn't know it yet, but someone else was watching. Someone who believed kindness was a weakness. Someone who held his future in their hands. When the woman's car finally disappeared down the dark road, Matthew stepped back inside the station, only to find Darren Cole standing near the office doorway. His arms were locked across his chest, and his gaze was burning with fury. He didn't shout, not at first, he didn't need to. His silence alone poured a thick dread into the room. Office now. Matthew walked into the small, cramped office with a calm he definitely did not feel. Cole slammed the door behind him and began to pace like a storm gathering strength. "You think I'm not watching?" he barked, his voice dripping with contempt. "You think I didn't see what you just did?" Cole jabbed a finger toward the security screen, which was replaying the moment Matthew helped the woman. "You stole company gas." "That's theft," Matthew responded quietly, his voice steady. "It was my money. I just helped her reach home safely." "There was a child in the car." Cole let out a sharp, mocking laugh. "This is a business, not a charity. You broke the rule. Therefore, you're fired." The word struck Matthew like an iron bar. He felt his breath catch in his throat, but he refused to bow. He took off his name tag, placed it gently on the desk, and walked out of the station. He left behind 3 years of loyalty, of sacrifice, and of silent endurance. Every step he took away from that store felt like walking into a deeper, colder uncertainty, but he didn't regret what he had done. He knew what mattered more than rules, and more than fear. Outside, the freezing air wrapped around him as he began the long walk home, thinking only of Ella, asleep in her small, warm bed. She was completely unaware that her father had just lost their only source of income, unaware of the storm that was waiting for them in the morning. Yet, fate was already moving toward him. Before the sun rose again, something would arrive at his doorstep. Something that didn't belong in his quiet, working-class neighborhood. A sleek, black Rolls Royce, carrying answers he had never looked for, and a twist he never ever believed could happen. But who was the woman he helped, and why would the most powerful family in the entire state come looking for a broke, single father before sunrise? Matthew's long night was far from over. In fact, his real story was just beginning. The evening air wrapped around me like a heavy blanket as I stood there, staring at the empty road. It stretched ahead like an endless question. I kept asking myself, how did everything shift so fast? How did a family that once shared so much warmth and laughter now feel colder than the night pressing against my skin? I could almost hear the echo of what used to be my home. The walls that once carried stories now held none of mine. The door that once opened with love now shut me out with a crushing silence. And I wondered, did my son ever feel the weight of what he had done, or did he just walk forward without ever looking back? I pushed forward along the quiet street, keeping my steps steady even though my heart felt anything but. Each footstep reminded me of every sacrifice I'd made. Every night I stayed awake because my child had a fever. Every morning I worked to make sure he never slept hungry. Every hidden tear I wiped when life had been unfair to me, but I never let it touch him. The father in me lived for the child he became. Yet now, that same child handed me a fate colder than a stranger's handshake. Lights flickered from distant windows, glowing like small worlds filled with warmth and faces that belonged. And I kept walking, letting the night guide me, hoping that somewhere ahead, a single reason waited that would explain why betrayal hid in the bone of my own blood. The wind picked up, swirling dust along the road, and the world felt wider than before. Too wide, too empty, but I would not fall to it, not yet. Not while even the smallest breath of hope lived inside me. I reached a narrow alley where shadows stretched long and twisted, as if trying to whisper something to me. I stepped through, letting the darkness settle around me like an old friend, because pain always finds comfort in quiet places. A faint sound echoed, a soft shuffle. For a moment, I tensed, half expecting danger, half expecting nothing. But it was neither. Instead, an old stray dog limped into view, lowering its head as if greeting another lost soul. The look in its eyes mirrored my own. Tired, but still fighting. Still breathing. Still hoping. I knelt, reaching out gently, unsure if it would trust me. But it came closer, pressing its head into my palm. A simple gesture, yet it struck deeper than a blade. In that brief connection, I felt something I hadn't felt since the moment my son walked away without a backward glance. I felt needed, wanted, alive. I whispered softly, though my voice carried no marks of calm, only raw edges. Yet the dog stayed by my side, following as I rose and continued forward. Step by step, to wandering hearts moving through the quiet night. Soon, the alley widened, opening into a small, old market, long since closed for the day. Empty stalls lined the path, wooden counters worn by years of hands passing goods and coins. The scent of spices faintly lingered in the air, along with the distant memory of what once thrived here. I paused, my eyes tracing the faded colors. For a moment, I imagined myself sitting at one of those stalls, chatting with familiar faces, sharing smiles that cost nothing and meant everything. But memories are heavy when the present is light, and so I let them drift away, carried by the breeze. At the far end of the market, I noticed a narrow shed, its door slightly ajar, as if inviting me in. Caution tugged at me, but exhaustion pulled stronger. I stepped closer, pushing the door open and peering inside. The room held only shadows and dust, but it was shelter, a roof to shield me from the cold, a corner to rest my legs, and a space where silence did not judge me. I entered slowly, the stray dog padding at my heel, curling near me as I sat against the wall. I drew a deep breath, trying to steady the trembling thoughts spinning inside my head. Hours passed in quiet, and I let myself drift into a soft haze, somewhere between wakefulness and sleep. But my mind refused to rest. It churned with the memory of my son's eyes when he pushed me out of my own home. The sharpness in his voice, the coldness in his stance, and the strange, unfamiliar face of a child I once knew, better than myself. I searched for a reason, a single sign I may have missed, an invisible fracture I failed to mend. But nothing came, only a hollow ache spreading through my chest like growing vines. I leaned my head back, closing my eyes, but the darkness behind them felt louder than the one outside. Why did this happen? What was I meant to do now? Where did a father go when his child no longer wanted him? Where did a wounded heart find rest when even home refused to remember his name? These questions circled silently, until a sudden, faint vibration echoed from outside, soft but unmistakable, like something humming with urgency. I rose slowly, peeking outside, expecting nothing but shadows. Yet the night seemed to pulse with a strange sense of warning. and in the far distance, a faint light moved steadily, growing brighter, inch by inch, like an approaching signal. A message, or a moment, waiting to unfold. As I stared, something inside me whispered that this was not just light. It was the beginning of a turn, the first shift in a story that had barely begun writing itself. And then, the light blinked, once, twice, and stopped, as if watching me. Something in that light was searching for me. And the moment I stepped toward it, everything I thought I knew about my son, about myself, and about the night, began to change in ways I never could have imagined. The strange light hovered in the distance like a quiet heartbeat pulsing against the stillness of the night. The air around me shifted, as if it sensed a moment, trying to form itself out of the darkness. I stepped from the shed slowly, the stray dog following close behind, its ears tilted forward, its body tense and alert, as if it felt more than I could see. I narrowed my eyes, trying to understand what waited ahead, but the light only glowed brighter, then dimmer, then brighter again, like it was calling me forward, with a rhythm older than the night itself. The ground beneath my feet felt uneven, yet each step carried a pull, a quiet insistence that whatever waited ahead was meant to be found, not avoided. The wind brushed past my face, carrying with it a faint scent, something metallic, something unfamiliar, as if the world was changing around me one breath at a time. The dog let out a low, nervous sound, but it still walked beside me. Its loyalty, born from nothing more than a moment of shared loneliness, felt stronger than the ties my own blood had given me earlier that day. As I came closer, the shape of the light began to sharpen, revealing a small, abandoned house, one I had passed many times in the past without giving it a second glance. Now, it glowed as if someone, or something, inside, wanted me to notice it, wanted me to step in, wanted me to see something I had kept hidden, even from myself. The windows flickered softly, like eyes waking from a long sleep. For a moment, my heart kicked against my ribs with a force that reminded me of a battlefield heartbeat, that feeling of stepping into the unknown with nothing but willpower to guide me. I reached the front door, which stood slightly open. The glow spilled through the gap and crawled across the ground like liquid warmth. I hesitated, trying to listen for any sign of movement, but the house was silent, too silent. The stray dog sniffed the doorway, its tail low but not tucked, a sign of fear mixed with duty, as if it knew it should not leave me now. I stepped inside, letting the strange glow wrap around me and swallow the shadows that clung to the corners. The interior of the house was empty, except for a single old table placed directly in the center of the room, and on that table lay a phone. One I recognized instantly because it was mine. My old phone, the one my son claimed was lost, the one I had searched for the day he took my house, the one he told me he had not seen. The glow came from its cracked screen, flashing with a steady, silent pulse that made the room feel alive with tension. I reached toward it, feeling my fingertips tremble, not from fear, but from the weight of understanding beginning to form like a storm cloud. I picked up the phone, the glow flickered under my touch, and the screen suddenly lit up fully, revealing a list of messages. All unread, all sent to my number, all from unknown senders. Each message began with the same chilling words: urgent contact required. Then followed by what looked like names of people I had not spoken to in decades. Names from years, buried deep. Names from the time when I served, when life was different, harsher, brutal, but honest. I felt an old heaviness crawl back into my chest, a weight I had locked away, believing it would never find me again. The dog nudged my leg, sensing something shifting inside me, and in that exact moment, the phone vibrated in my hand. The screen blinked once, and a new message appeared. Without a sound, without a sender, without any trace except the words that formed slowly, as if written by an invisible hand. Come outside now. I froze. The message looked alive, glowing brighter than the others, pulsing with a strange energy, and before I could react, the front door slammed shut behind me. No wind touched it, no hand reached for it, no presence stood near it. The walls around me seemed to breathe, the air thickening with something unexplainable, something watching, something waiting. The dog growled low, its fur rising along its spine. Suddenly, the phone vibrated again, another message appearing. Step outside before it is too late. I felt a deep tug inside, like an old instinct waking, the kind that once saved my life more times than I could count. Danger that moved without sound and struck without warning. I walked slowly toward the door, each step heavy, each breath sharp. The dog pressed against my leg, as if trying to shield me. When I reached the entrance, I pushed it open. The night outside looked different, darker, thicker, almost shifting like smoke trying to take shape. I stepped out, and the moment my feet touched the ground, the mysterious light vanished completely, swallowed by the night, leaving only silence behind. But the silence did not last. From the far end of the road, footsteps echoed, soft, slow, deliberate, approaching with a rhythm that carried purpose. And the moment I heard them, I knew. Those footsteps were coming for me. Not by accident, not by chance, but by intention. The footsteps grew louder, and with every step, I felt the truth moving closer. A truth my son tried to hide. A truth buried in my past, a truth that could destroy everything, or save everything, depending on what waited in the darkness. The footsteps approached with a slow, steady rhythm, each one landing with a weight that made the ground feel alive beneath me. The night thickened, pressing against my skin as if it wanted to warn me, or hide me, or swallow me whole. I stood at the edge of the abandoned house, my breath held in a long, trembling pause. The stray dog pressed close against my leg, its body stiff, its gaze fixed forward, ready to face whatever walked out of the darkness and into our fragile circle of light. The echo of the steps grew louder, clearer, more defined, until I could sense the size, the pace, the intention behind them. And then, a shadow emerged, slowly, from the far end of the road, stretching tall across the pavement, as if the figure carried a past as heavy as the night itself. The shape moved with confidence, not hurried, not cautious, simply certain, as if it already knew I would be standing right here, as if it had been waiting. My body tensed, old instincts rising inside me from places I thought I had buried deep, places shaped by years that tested both courage and fear. The figure came closer until the faint glow of a distant street lamp finally brushed over him, revealing a man in worn clothing, shoulders broad, face lined with time and experience, eyes sharp enough to cut through the dark. He stopped a few feet away, studying me with a gaze that felt too familiar, too knowing. For a moment, the world held its breath, and then he spoke, his voice low, steady, carrying a weight I could not yet read. "You should not be here." His words felt like a warning, not meant to scare, but to prepare, a tone used by someone who had seen danger, and survived it enough times to recognize its shadow long before others could. I felt my heart rise in my chest, beating with an old rhythm, like footsteps marching across memories that refused to stay buried. I stared at him, trying to place his face, searching for a connection, a clue, a moment from the past that might explain why this stranger walked toward me on a night filled with strange lights and shifting shadows. But nothing surfaced, no memory, no recognition, only the uneasy feeling that somehow he knew me better than I knew him. The dog let out a low rumble, as if sensing there was more to this meeting than what stood in front of us. The man took one step closer, his expression tightening as he lowered his voice further. "Your son should have told you," he said slowly, as if measuring each word with care, as if revealing too much too quickly might cause something to crack or collapse around us. I felt my breath catch in my throat, the wound from earlier that day opening again, raw and sharp. But this time, the pain carried something else, a hint of truth hidden beneath the hurt. I forced myself to answer, my voice rough from exhaustion and confusion. "Told me what? Exactly what should he have told me?" The man held my gaze, his silence stretching long enough to twist my stomach before he finally spoke again. "He should have told you what he found, what he kept, what he feared, and what he tried to hide from you, but could not hide from them." The word "them" slid into the night like a stone dropped into deep water, sending ripples through the stillness around us. I felt a chill spread across my spine, the kind that came when a truth stood too close yet refused to show its face. I took a step forward, unable to hold my question back. "Who are they?" The man shook his head slowly. "Not yet. You need to understand the whole story before you face them." He motioned for me to follow him, his hands steady, his movements purposeful, as if he knew the path even in the darkness. The dog looked up at me, waiting for my decision. I felt a deep tug inside me, a pull stronger than fear, stronger than confusion, a pull born from the sense that whatever truth this man carried was tied to the messages on my phone, the missing years of my past, and the betrayal of my own son. I followed him down the road, the night wrapping tightly around us. The man walked with the calm of someone who had walked this path before, someone who understood the lines drawn between danger and destiny. We reached a narrow turn where the shadows thickened and the trees leaned inward, their branches whispering secrets through the cold air. He finally stopped near an old metal gate, rusted, twisted, barely holding together. He placed his hand on it gently, as if touching an old memory. Then he looked at me with a steady, unwavering gaze, and said quietly, "This is where everything changed for you. Years ago, this is where they started watching you. And this is what your son discovered when he entered the place he was never meant to enter." My breath froze. The world stilled. The gate creaked softly, as if reacting to his words, and in that moment, the silence carried more weight than any sound could. The man pushed the gate open, and what I saw beyond it made my legs weaken because it held the truth. My son had tried to bury the truth that followed me through the years and the truth that someone else was coming for. The metal gate groaned as the man pushed it open. The old hinges cried out, as if they remembered every step, every secret, every shadow that had ever crossed this boundary. Beyond the gate lay a long narrow path, swallowed by tall grass and crooked trees. Their branches wove together above us, like a dark ceiling hiding the sky. The moment I stepped through, the air shifted, pressing heavy against my chest, as if the past itself reached out to greet me, or warn me. The stray dog hesitated at the gate, its ears flattening, its eyes locked on the dark path ahead. but after a few trembling seconds, it stepped beside me, refusing to leave me even in a place that pulsed with silent dread. The man walked ahead with a sure stride, his figure blending with the darkness as if he had walked this path 1,000 times before. I followed him slowly, each step stirring old dust, old memories, old echoes buried deep in the corners of my mind. The further we went, the stronger the feeling grew, a strange tug in the air. Like a forgotten memory trying to rise to the surface. Something inside me began to stir, a whisper, a fragment, a shape of something I once knew but could not fully remember. My heartbeat quickened, echoing through the silent path. The man glanced back, his eyes deep with knowledge. You feel it, don't you? His words drifted softly but carried a heavy truth. The place remembers you, even if you do not remember it. I frowned, my thoughts tangled. My past felt like a closed door, locked long ago, and yet, I felt the key turning without my permission, as if the shadows themselves wanted me to open it. I forced myself to ask quietly, what happened here? What did this place take from me? The man stopped for a moment, his shoulders rising with a slow, heavy breath before he answered. It didn't take something, it kept something. Something you left behind. He continued walking, and I stayed close. The path opened into a clearing where the moonlight slipped through the branches, creating pale silver patterns on the ground. And there, at the center of the clearing, stood an old building. Its roof was bent, its walls cracked, yet it stood stubbornly against time. A forgotten shelter, a remnant of a purpose, long abandoned but not erased. My heart clenched as I stared at it. A strange familiarity rushed through me like a wave. I stepped closer, my fingers brushing the rough surface of the wall. And suddenly, a faint, sharp image cut through my mind like lightning flashing in the dark. A younger version of myself, standing right here, wearing the same wary eyes, yet carrying a purpose as heavy as stone. Voices around me, telling me to move, stay, cover, advance, retreat. Commands echoing through a night, much like this one, and then silence. My breathing hitched. The memory sliced deeper, though still incomplete, like a picture missing half its frame. The man watched me quietly, his expression unreadable. Then he spoke with a low, steady tone. This is where you were brought after the mission. The one that never reached the reports. The one no one was supposed to survive. The one that made them watch you from that day onward. The word them floated again through the air, stirring the branches above us. I swallowed hard, trying to piece together the fragments that flickered and faded before I could hold them. What mission? What were they watching for? He pointed toward the building, his hand steady. Go inside, he said. You will understand more there. Not everything, not yet, but enough to see why your son panicked when he found what he found, and why he hid it from you until now. His voice held no threat, only truth and weight. I stepped toward the doorway, the dog following with low, hesitant steps, my breath pressing tight in my chest. Inside, dust coated the floor in thick layers. The air was heavy with the scent of time, untouched. Beams of moonlight pushed through cracks in the roof, revealing faint shapes scattered around, old metal trunks, broken tools, rusting pieces of equipment. And then I saw something that made my blood freeze. A large board, pinned with faded papers and photographs. Edges curled, yellowed by age, but still holding stories in their worn faces. I stepped closer and felt my pulse slam against my ribs, because the photographs were of me, younger, harder, carved by battles and choices I had forgotten, or forced myself to forget. Each picture marked moments, missions, places that carried shadows rather than memories. But at the bottom of the board lay something more recent, something that had no dust on it. A page, clean and new, pressed against the old wall, as if placed not long ago. The man's voice echoed gently behind me. Your son found that page. He tried to take it away before they could return, but he didn't make it far. I reached out, my hand trembling as I lifted the page, and the moment my eyes met the words written across it, my entire world tilted. The message was clear, sharp, and chilling. A message meant for me, and only me. Asterisk, we know you are still alive. Asterisk, the room seemed to shrink around me. The air turned thick, my muscles tightening as the truth began to unravel, pulling at every thread of my life. Every memory, every silence, every betrayal. The man stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. They are coming back for what was left unfinished. My fingers clutched the page as a cold realization spread through me, because I suddenly understood. This wasn't about my house, not about my son, not even about betrayal. This was about something buried in me, something powerful enough that they were willing to return for it. The page trembled in my hand, though the night around me was completely still. There was no wind, not even a whisper. But the words on that paper, they were burning through my mind, carving a path straight back into memories I thought were long buried, locked away for good. The room felt like it was pressing in on me, the walls themselves seeming to recognize the message, as if they too remembered a truth I had spent my entire life trying to outrun. The man watched me carefully, his eyes steady. He knew he was aware that the very ground beneath my feet was shifting in ways I could barely comprehend. My stray dog, my only companion these days, nudged my leg, sensing the storm that was building inside me. His quiet presence was the only anchor in a moment that felt too large, too heavy, too close to something I wasn't sure I wanted to remember. Yet, I couldn't look away from the page. The ink was so dark against the clean surface, the message simple and merciless. We know, you are still alive, alive, alive. The word echoed through me, pounding against the locked doors inside my mind. Doors I had sealed shut after the mission. The one that changed everything. The one no one was supposed to survive. The one even I barely remembered. My breath came out raw, dragging through my chest. I forced myself to speak, my voice raspy. What do they want with me? The man stepped forward, his expression tightening. His voice was low, heavy, and sure. They want what you carry. Something you brought back from the field. Something you don't remember. But they do. Something shifted inside me then. A cold pulse spread through my ribs, a sensation that was far too familiar to be new, yet too distant to name. I pressed a hand to my chest, feeling an old ache stir like a sleeping beast finally waking from its slumber. My knees threatened to give out, but I held myself steady, refusing to fall. The man moved to my side, placing a firm, grounding hand on my shoulder. He spoke slowly, deliberately. Your son found the file, the one that explained it all. He should have told you, but he was afraid. He feared what it meant, feared what you would become once you knew. My voice cracked. What did he find? He led me to the far corner of the room, to a rusted metal trunk, half buried under years of debris. He brushed away the dust, revealing an old insignia. It was faint, but still recognizable, a symbol that sparked a flicker of memory deep within me. He pulled the heavy lid open. Inside, nestled on old fabric, lay a small, locked case. It was smooth, dark, and cold to the touch. I felt something inside me twist painfully at the sight of it, my heart pounding harder with every passing second. He handed the case to me. The moment my fingers wrapped around the cool metal, a surge rushed through me. It was sharp, fierce, electrifying, as if the case recognized me, as if it had been waiting for my touch all this time. The man watched me closely. You feel it, don't you? It belongs to you, and only to you. Your son opened this trunk, he saw the case, and he read the documents hidden beneath it. He learned the truth you were never supposed to learn. They wanted to control it, and by extension, they wanted to control you. My hands shook, the case pulsing lightly against my palms like a second heartbeat, one awakening from a long, deep sleep. I closed my eyes, trying to breathe, but each breath only filled me with more questions, more fear, more of a suffocating weight. I forced my voice out. What is inside? He answered with a steady, grave tone. The reason they never let your file go public. The reason your name disappeared from the records. The reason you survived what no one else did. This case contains the last piece of that night, the last piece of you. His words curled around me, sinking deep into the cracks of my shattered memory. The room flickered at the edges of my vision, blurring as faint fragments started to rise from the depths. A flash of fire, a burst of blinding light, a deafening rush of sound, bodies falling, voices shouting, and me, standing in the center of it all, untouched, unbroken, breathing when I shouldn't have been. My hands dropped to my sides, the case feeling incredibly heavy against my palm as my mind struggled to hold itself together. The man stepped closer, his voice softening, as if he were speaking to someone standing on the edge of a cliff. Your son knew they were coming. He saw the reports, the movement. He knew they would come to your house first. He tried to move the evidence. He tried to warn you. But he didn't understand how deep their reach goes, how far they are willing to go to retrieve what they lost. A cold chill scraped down my spine as the horrible truth finally settled like a shadow over my chest. My son, he wasn't betraying me. He was trying to save me. In his desperation, in his fear, he pushed me away, trying to keep me out of sight, out of danger, out of their reach. But he failed, because they were already watching me. They had never stopped watching me. Slowly, I lifted the case again. I pressed my thumb against a small metal plate on its surface. Without any force, without a key, without any effort at all, it clicked open. It was as if it had been waiting for my touch alone. The lid rose silently, revealing a small object inside. It was smooth, dark, and unfamiliar. Yet it felt strangely alive. It pulsed once, then twice, as if it were greeting me. And in that moment, something inside me unlocked right along with it. A memory broke free. It was sharp and unstoppable. A flash of the night that had changed everything, and the cold, hard truth that had followed me through every single year since. The moment my hand touched the object, the full memory returned. And with it, the truth of why they wanted me back so desperately. And why I survived when no one else did. My world tilted. The screams, the chaos, the impossible energy that had erupted from MIT all came rushing back. I wasn't just a survivor. I was the source. The object in the case wasn't just a piece of that night, it was a part of me, a part I had unknowingly shed. They didn't just want a weapon back, they wanted me. The living, breathing source of it. and my son had died trying to protect me from a truth he knew would bring them right to our door. The man's hand was still on my shoulder, a silent testament to the new reality crashing down around me. He didn't need to say anything else. I knew what I had to do. They thought I was a ghost, a forgotten soldier, but they were about to find out that some things don't stay buried forever, and this time, I wouldn't be running. I would be hunting. The object lay in the center of the case, glowing with a faint pulse, like a quiet, living heartbeat. Its surface was smooth, dark, and warm beneath my fingertips, as if it had been waiting for years for this single moment. The moment my skin touched it, the room around me twisted. The air thickened, and a sharp flash burst across my vision like lightning tearing open the sky. The stray dog whimpered, backing away, but its eyes stayed locked on me, sensing that something ancient and dangerous had awakened inside. The man stepped back, giving me space, while watching me with the eyes of someone who knew this moment would come. A wave of heat surged up my arm, racing through my shoulder, crashing into my chest like a rising storm, and the locked door of my memory split open with a violent crack. A forgotten night returned in a flood, not gentle, not slow, but fierce, unrelenting, unstoppable. I staggered, gripping the edge of a broken table as the memory swallowed me whole. I saw darkness stretching across a ruined field, the air trembling with distant explosions, the sky glowing with fire and smoke. I saw myself standing in the center of chaos, my uniform torn, my body shaking, yet untouched by the blasts that tore through the ground around me. Voices screamed orders. My fellow soldiers were running, falling, failing, while I remained in the center of destruction, breathing, alive, uninjured, unexplainably whole. Then I saw the source of it all, a device half buried in the rubble, glowing just like the object in my hand. The same pulsing light, the same strange energy. I remembered reaching for it, dragged by something beyond instinct, and the moment my fingers touched it, everything stopped. The world froze, the explosions vanished, the screaming silenced, the air stilled, as if the entire sky inhaled at once. I stood alone in a circle of perfect quiet while the battlefield burned around me. Untouched by flame, untouched by shrapnel, untouched by death. The memory twisted deeper, my vision blurring as figures stepped out of the shadows behind me. Men not wearing our uniforms. Men without insignias. Men without names. They circled the glowing device, studying it, studying me, whispering words I could not fully hear. But one phrase echoed clearly through the haze. Keep him alive. He is the only one who can hold it. The flash ended. The memory snapped back to the present, and I gasped, stumbling as the room solidified around me again. The object still rested in my palm, glowing stronger now, as if fed by the memory I had reclaimed. The man stepped forward, his voice low, careful, steady. You remember now, don't you? You were the only survivor, because that thing bonded with you the moment you touched it. The energy chose you. Whatever power it carries, you carry it too. My breath shuddered, my heart pounding like a drum in a cavern as I stared at the object. The truth settled over me, heavier than any weight I had ever carried. This was why they wanted me alive, not dead. This was why they never let my file go public. This was why my name vanished from every record. I was not supposed to survive that mission. They needed the object salvaged, and I became part of it, fused to it, changed by it in ways no one could understand. I lifted my head, my voice rough, barely holding together. What does this mean? Why now? The man hesitated just long enough for dread to slip into my bones. Then he answered, because they finally learned how to track the energy. And the moment your son opened that case, the moment he touched the files, the moment he stepped into your past, their signal found him, their eyes found him, and through him, they found you. My stomach tightened, the floor feeling unsteady beneath me. My voice cracked out, where is my son? The man exhaled slowly, his gaze dark with regret. They took him before he could warn you. The stray dog barked sharply, the sound echoing through the building, raw and urgent. At the same moment, a soft vibration rippled through the air. The object in my hand pulsed brighter. The man turned sharply, eyes narrowing. They are close, closer than I expected. A cold surge of fear shot through me, mixing with the rising fire, a fire I had not felt in years. Not fear of death, not fear of danger, but fear for my son, my blood, my child, who walked into this storm alone because he believed it was the only way to protect me. I clenched the object, a fierce oath rising in my chest. They are not taking him. The man stepped toward me, his expression shifting into something hardened, resolute. Then we run. Now, because if they reach this place first, neither of us will leave, and the object will fall back into their hands. The ground trembled softly, steps approaching from the darkness. And the moment I turned toward the door, I knew they had found us. And the hunt had already begun. The door shuddered. Footsteps closed in heavy, slow, deliberate. Each echo in the empty hall marked the approach of those who had hunted us for years. I held the object tighter, its pulse syncing with the rhythm of my heart. The stray dog growled, low and steady behind me, its eyes locked on the shadows creeping closer. Every breath seemed deafening. the air thick with tension and the metallic tang of fear pressing down on my chest. I moved silently toward the side exit. The man beside me matched my steps, his gaze scanning every corner, every flicker of light, searching for signs of the intruders. We had trained for scenarios like this: drills in abandoned warehouses, simulations in the desert. But nothing could have prepared me for the reality of knowing my son was already in their hands. The thought twisted my stomach and sharpened my mind at the same time. A sudden shift in the shadows made me freeze. The sound was soft, barely perceptible, but my instincts screamed danger. I could feel it brushing against the edges of my senses. The object in my hand brightened, as if warning me, signaling me, guiding me toward survival. I exhaled slowly, trying to quiet the panic threatening to break through. My eyes adjusted to the dim light, trying to see shapes moving beyond the walls. The man whispered, "Move, now." We slipped into a narrow corridor, the floor cold concrete under our feet. Our breaths were silent as we pressed against the wall. Every step measured, calculated. Our only advantage was knowing they expected us to panic, to run blindly. We had to stay sharp, or the hunt would end here, for all of us. The shadows shifted faster ahead. I heard the faint click of boots scraping against metal, a signal. The enemy was approaching from 2 directions. I pressed the object to my chest, its pulse steadying mine. My mind raced through every memory, every drill, every escape route, every calculation that could give us a fraction of a chance. My son was counting on me. I could not fail. Suddenly, the corridor opened into a large abandoned storage room. Crates were stacked high, casting long, jagged shadows across the floor. The man pushed me behind a stack of pallets, crouching low, his hand on my shoulder. The dog was at my side, growling, the vibrations in the air, signaling the approach of others. I peered through a crack in the crates and saw them. They moved with synchronized precision, dark uniforms, masks obscuring their faces, weapons glinting under the faint light. A leader stepped forward, signaling them with a precise hand movement. I felt a surge of anger and fear twisting inside me, a tidal wave of emotion threatening to paralyze me. But the object pulsed stronger, as if telling me to focus, to channel the energy, to control it. And I felt it, a sharp vibration running up my arm, into my chest, filling me with clarity, with purpose. Memories of the battlefield, flashes of survival, moments of inexplicable protection surged through me. I knew in that instant, whatever this object was, it had chosen me for a reason. And now, it was my turn to act. The man beside me exhaled sharply, his gaze locking on mine, ready for the signal. We had only one chance to intercept them before they reached the next stage. Every second wasted would cost my son everything. I moved silently forward, my heart pounding, the pulse of the object guiding each step. We were positioned perfectly between the door and the advancing team, ready to strike or evade, whatever the moment demanded. Suddenly, a faint metallic click echoed. The leader raised a hand, signaling them to stop. A cold voice cut through the air, announcing our presence. "You cannot escape. You know the boy is ours. And the energy you carry will belong to us eventually." I could feel the weight of those words pressing down like a physical force. At the same moment, the object in my hand glowed brighter, almost blindingly bright. The dog barked fiercely and lunged forward, as if sensing the threat and willing to protect us. I exhaled. I realized that the first move would define everything. I stepped into the open, the pulse of the object flowed through me, energy vibrating in my veins, heat rising through my body. I shouted the command, "We run, now." The man beside me leaped into motion, and the shadows scattered as we sprinted across the room, dodging crates, leaping over obstacles. The enemy fired a warning shot that embedded in the wall, inches from my foot. Every heartbeat was a countdown. Every breath, a calculation of life or death. The image of my son in danger screamed in my mind, propelling me forward. We reached the far exit, the cold night air hitting our faces like a shock. I glanced back. The intruders were pursuing, but not yet close enough to strike. The object pulsed intensely. I could feel its energy thrumming with mine, as if telling me to protect, to survive, to keep the chain unbroken. I pushed open the heavy door and leaped into the darkness outside the warehouse. The shadows consumed us for a moment. The man beside me was steady, focused. We ran through the abandoned lot, dodging debris, overturned cars, and broken streetlights. A faint light flickered in the distance, signaling the next stage of our escape. I could feel the pull of the object toward it, as if it knew the path we needed to take. The enemy was closing the distance, but the pulse in my hand was steady and strong, giving me courage, giving me power. I pushed onward, willing myself to move faster, to reach the place where we could regroup and plan to take back my son. As we rounded a corner, a sharp metallic clang sounded behind us. A figure lunged from the shadows, striking toward the object. I twisted reflexively, feeling a surge of energy explode through my veins. My vision blurred. A shockwave of force sent the assailant sprawling, crashing into the pavement. The man beside me caught his breath, looking at me with a mix of awe and fear. I realized then that this was only the beginning. This first confrontation had revealed a truth I had both feared and hoped for. The object was more than a tool. It was a protector, a weapon, and a guide. And now that our presence had been detected, the full hunt would begin. From the shadows, a new figure stepped forward, taller, faster, moving with a presence that made the night feel smaller and colder. I knew with certainty that this was the one who held my son. And tonight, I would have to face them. This is the beginning of our story. The night air pressed down heavy as I faced the figure emerging from the shadows. It was taller, faster, moving like darkness had taken shape in human form. The object in my hands pulsed fiercely, a silent warning for me to prepare. I could hear the distant echoes of the man beside me shouting, but my focus was locked on the figure ahead. The object in my hands thrummed stronger, almost as if it was responding to the threat, amplifying my courage and filling me with a sudden clarity. I would not fail him. Not now, not ever. I advanced carefully, each step calculated. My mind raced through every memory, every training, every lesson learned, from survival, from life, from the battlefield. I thought of the nights when fear had tried to paralyze me, and now I used it all as fuel. The figure flinched slightly as I neared my son, their grip tightening around him. But the pulse of the object surged through me, and I realized it wasn't just a protector. It was a beacon, a force that could repel those who meant harm. With a sudden lunge, I moved forward. The figure struck toward me, metal connecting with a force that sent sparks into the night. But the object pulsed brighter, deflecting the blow with a shockwave that threw the figure off balance. I seized the chance, grabbing my son and pulling him close, his small body trembling against mine. I whispered, "Everything will be okay, hold on." The figure recovered faster than I expected, lunging again. Each strike was met with the energy flowing through me, each block pushing them back, step by step. The man beside me appeared, shouting directions, guiding us through the maze of debris and overturned cars. The shadows of the warehouse stretched like tendrils, reaching for us. But I could feel the bond between the object and me, strengthening. Every step, every heartbeat, synchronized with its pulse, as if it had chosen me not just to survive, but to protect, to end this and reclaim what was mine. A sudden motion to my left, a shadowy hand reaching to strike. But the pulse exploded outward, energy radiating, knocking the figure to the ground. I seized the moment, stepping forward with everything in me. The air was thick with tension, the boy clinging to me, gasping with fear. The object glowed brighter than ever before, illuminating the dark with a white heat that cut through the shadows. I pressed it forward, toward the figure, and felt a final surge of power. The presence of darkness broke, as if it had no anchor left. The figure fell back, sprawled on the concrete, unable to rise. The grip on my son was released, and I pulled him close, holding him tight. My heart pounded, tears streaming down my face. I whispered, "Everything is okay, we are safe now." The pulse of the object faded slowly. The air around us calmed. The threat was gone, the shadows retreating into nothingness, leaving only the quiet hum of the night and the steady breathing of my son in my arms. We made our way back toward the car, the man beside me looking exhausted, yet relieved. I glanced at my son. His small hand gripped mine tightly, his wide eyes staring up at me, searching for answers. I smiled softly. "I know you were scared, but we made it through. Everything is going to be okay now." He nodded slowly, clinging to me. I realized the journey we had endured was not just about survival. It was about understanding the power of courage, of kindness, of protection, and the unbreakable bond between a parent and child. Back at the safe house, I set him down on the bed. His small eyes were still wide, but calmer now. I held the object in my hands, examining it, finally understanding. It was not just energy. It was a force tied to intention, to purity, to the act of protecting, without hesitation, without selfishness. I looked at my son and knew that the object had recognized the choice to act selflessly, and rewarded it with the power to preserve life and justice. The man beside me spoke quietly. "This ends the hunt for now, but the forces that sought it will return." I nodded silently, understanding the weight of what we had survived and the responsibilities now resting on us. The boy slept, finally, at peace. I stared at the fading glow of the object, realizing it had fulfilled its purpose for this moment. And perhaps it had chosen me because I had chosen to act for the good of another, without thought for myself. Morning came, soft and pale, sunlight spilling through the windows. The boy woke up beside me, smiling and rubbing his eyes. I kissed his forehead and promised that we would always protect each other, no matter the trials. The object now rested safely in a hidden place, its presence a quiet guardian watching over us. The shadows that had hunted us were dissipated, for the moment, but I knew vigilance would always be needed, and courage must always be ready to rise. We left the city that day, for a quieter place where no one would seek us. The boy held my hand tightly as we walked down the streets, the energy of life around us filling my chest with warmth. I knew our journey had changed us forever. But more importantly, I knew that the bond between us had become unbreakable. Forged in fear, tested in darkness, and strengthened by hope. And in the back of my mind, I understood that one small act of courage, one decision to act without hesitation, could change everything. Because sometimes the world gives us a gift we cannot yet understand, and it is up to us to protect it, to cherish it, and to use it for what truly matters in the end. The light of the object reflected not just power, but the choices we make, the kindness we extend, the courage we carry in our hearts. I looked down at my son walking beside me, smiling, and I knew without a doubt that this was the true victory. Not the battles won, not the darkness defeated, but the life preserved, and the love that would never falter. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. See you next time.